This week, Diamond flies a brand new twin for the first time. Terrafugia flies the first production prototype of its rotable aircraft, and yet another airline files for Chapter 11 reorganization. I'm Ashley Hale. Welcome to Airborne on Aero TV. We're live this week at the AEA Convention and Trade Show in Washington, D.C., and you'll find plenty of news about the convention on our Aero TV live page. But there was plenty of other aviation news this week, so let's get to it. Aviation lost one of its icons Wednesday. West Texas media reported that the Grumman F-8F Bearcat, flown by well-known airshow pilot Howard Pardue, went down just after 1400 local time on departure from Stevens County, Texas Airport, about 90 miles west of Fort Worth. Pardue, 77, was fatally injured in the accident. There are very few details other than that the airplane went down almost immediately after takeoff, and there was a post-impact fire. Pardue was pronounced dead at the scene. There will, of course, be an investigation. Our condolences go out to Pardue's family. Diamond keeps making a lot of news, and it's all good. Diamond flew its new DA52 seven-place twin for the first time this week. The newest airplane from Diamond Aircraft, powered by two Austro-engine 180 HP turbo diesel engines. The maiden flight was performed by Diamond chairman Christian Dries and Ingmar Meyerbusch, the head of the company's flight test division. The DA52 is designed to carry up to 7 people. For its first flight, it lifted off with a gross weight of just over 3,900 pounds, getting off the ground in less than 1,000 feet without flaps and a 5-knot headwind. The airplane climbed at 1,700 feet per minute, reaching 12,000 knots in less than 9 minutes at 120 knots indicated. Cruising speed was gradually increased to 190 knots true, which was the limit of the authorized envelope. Diamond says the production airplane will be much faster and that it flew as expected on its first time out. Meanwhile, the first flight of the production prototype of the Terrafugia transition rotable aircraft was announced this week. The flight actually took place March 23rd at Plattsburgh International Airport in Plattsburgh, New York. The same vehicle has also successfully conducted initial drive and conversion testing. The two-seat personal aircraft is capable of driving on roads and highways, parking in a single-car garage, and flying with unleaded automotive fuel. The transition's first flight reached an altitude of 1,400 feet above the ground and lasted 8 minutes, staying in the vicinity of Plattsburgh International Airport. It demonstrated the controllability and safe operational characteristics of the aircraft. 6 phases of flight testing are planned to continue development and demonstrate compliance to the light sport aircraft standards. The transition will be on display at the New York International Auto Show, April 6th through the 15th. Though he had not been on the short list of very many aviation organizations, several of the alphabet groups have publicly announced their support for the nomination of Michael Huerta to be the next administrator of the FAA. President Obama announced Huerta as his choice for the post last week. NBAA President and CEO Ed Bowen said, quote, "In his work at the FAA, Michael Huerta has demonstrated strong leadership and a solid understanding of the industry's priorities, including the need for continued transformation to a next-generation air traffic control system, which will produce safety and efficiency gains in America's aviation system." AEA President Paula Dirks said, quote, "While somewhat surprised at the swiftness of the nomination, we appreciate the fact that the Obama administration recognizes the need to name a new FAA administrator now rather than later. There are too many challenging issues in the immediate future, including next-gen implementation and the UAV mandates in 2015, to delay appointing a permanent administrator to lead the agency." A4A President and CEO Nicholas Calillo said, quote, Michael Huerta's proven leadership and clear grasp of the imperatives of Next Gen make him an outstanding choice at this important time to further drive safety and improved efficiency of our nation's aerospace. Other organizations lining up behind the nomination this week were the Aerospace Industries Association and Airports Council International North America. You're watching Airborne. More in a moment.
Since the early days of powered flight, pilots have struggled with landing in crosswinds and learning proper crosswind landing techniques. Even today, most crosswind landing skills are learned through trial and error, sometimes with disastrous results. Believe it or not, the most common contributing factor in weather-related accidents each year is crosswinds. The second most common factor is wind gusts. In fact, crosswinds and wind gusts cause more landing accidents than fog, thunderstorms, and icing combined. That's where the Redbird X-Wind SE comes in. It teaches pilots the proper techniques to meet and beat these top two causes of weather-related landing accidents. By placing pilots in gusty crosswind conditions for extended periods of time, the X-Wind SE gives instructors all the time they need to teach the pilot the proper techniques for landing in challenging crosswind conditions. For more information on Redbird flight simulations, the Redbird X-Wind SE, and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero TV, our website, or a podcast, you can send us an email to news-spy@aero-news.net. Pinnacle Airlines announced Sunday the company and its subsidiaries have filed voluntary petitions for relief under a Chapter 11 of the United States Bankruptcy Code and the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York. Pinnacle said in a news release on its website that it intends to use the Chapter 11 process to continue implementing a comprehensive turnaround plan aimed at addressing its operational and financial challenges in a rapidly evolving regional airline industry. The filing came on Monday morning. Pinnacle Airlines, Colgan, Masaba Aviation, and Pinnacle East Coast Operations all filed petitions seeking to have their cases jointly administered for procedural purposes. Pinnacle says it expects to accomplish several key initiatives during the restructuring process to help ensure that it returns to profitability and remains viable over the long term as the regional airline industry continues to contract and transform, including a restructuring of its key operational agreements with Delta Airlines, winding down its operations with United Airlines, completing the wind down of its essential air service flying with U.S. Airways, achieving cost savings from its workforce, identifying additional opportunities across the organization to reduce costs, and ensuring that it has the appropriate fleet, staffing levels, and network to, quote, operate profitably on an ongoing basis. Air Force leaders provided an update on the Air Force Scientific Advisory Board study into the F-22 Raptor's life support systems and flight operations during a briefing in the Pentagon March 29th. Retired General Gregory Martin, an aviator and a former commander of two major commands, chaired the 9-member SAB team, which studied the aircraft's onboard oxygen generation systems and briefed its findings and recommendations in trying to determine a root cause for pilots experiencing unexplained psychological events with the F-22 Raptor. 14 psychological incidents with the aircraft's oxygen system noted between April 2008 until May 2011 were investigated by the Air Force. 10 did not reveal a root cause, General Martin said. The advisory board made 9 findings and 14 recommendations based on a 7-month study of the F-22's evolution, from conception and acquisition through current flight operations, which the Air Force say it will use to move forward. Bezos Expeditions founder Jeff Bezos, who's perhaps best known as the business brain behind Amazon.com, says his organization has located the F-1 engines on the first stage of the Saturn rocket, which boosted the first men to the moon, and he wants to undertake a recovery effort. Bezos wrote on his blog, quote, "I'm excited to report that using state-of-the-art deep-sea sonar, the team has found the Apollo 11 engines lying 14,000 feet below the surface, and we're making plans to attempt to raise one or more of them from the ocean floor. We don't know yet what conditions these engines might be in. They hit the ocean at high velocity and have been in salt water for more than 40 years. On the other hand, they're made of tough stuff, so we'll see." NASA Administrator Charles Bolden issued a statement Friday regarding the efforts announced this week by Jeff Bezos to recover main engines from Saturn V first-stage rocket of Apollo 11. Quote, "I would like to thank John Bezos for his communication with NASA, informing us of his historic find. I salute him and his entire team on this bold venture and wish them all the luck in the world." Bezos has asked if an F-1 engine could be displayed at Seattle's Museum of Flight, which Boeing said could happen under the right circumstances. I'm Ashley Hale, and you're Airborne on Aero TV.
If you own a Cirrus today, or if you are considering the purchase of a new or used aircraft, consider this. Avidine, in conjunction with the country's leading Cirrus sales and maintenance facilities, has launched the G3R9 program that combines the purchase of a late-model, low-time Cirrus aircraft and the addition of the Avidine Integra Release 9 avionics suite for much less than you may have thought, and certainly much less than purchasing a brand new aircraft. G3R9, combining the best airframe, best engine, and best avionics for the best value.
Thanks for joining us. Plans are underway for the solar-powered airplane Solar Impulse to fly from Switzerland to Morocco, its longest flight yet. Over 1,550 miles without using a drop of fuel. The plans are for Solar Impulse to take off during May or June, crossing the Pyrenees and the Mediterranean. Bertrand Piccard and Andre Borschberg will take turns to fly the aircraft on its 48-hour journey, with a scheduled intermediate stopover near Madrid to change pilots. The long-duration flight will serve as a dress rehearsal for the round-the-world flight in 2014. It will allow the mission team to gather additional experience in cooperating with international airports, integrating the prototypes into regular air traffic patterns, and managing the logistics of maintenance. The Sky Aero has found new life with new owners. The Manyagi Group announced the acquisition for their company of the Sky Aero related assets, including all existing product certifications. The Sky Aero, an Italian all-composite high-wing tandem aircraft and pusher configuration, was first introduced into the market back in 1993 from Meteor SPA in response to the needs for a low-cost, high-visibility aerial platform. Destined for patrol, law enforcement, environmental research, and electronic news gathering, the Sky Aero can feature belly and nose installed sensors, sustaining most of the rotary wing task at a fraction of the cost. With versions ranging from LSA to FAR Part 23, several hundred Sky Aeros are currently operated worldwide. The new Sky Aero will be presented at AirVenture Oshkosh in July. It was not a great week on the order books for Boeing. The Chinese government approved shifts in orders for one of its flagged carriers from 24 Dreamliners to 45 737s, pushing Boeing into the net loss column on 787 orders for 2012. Bloomberg News reports that China Eastern Airlines shifted to the smaller airplanes and that Boeing reported the move on its weekly order update online. Boeing spokesman Doug Alder told Bloomberg that the move had been, quote, in the works for some time, waiting for approval from the Chinese government. China cited delays in delivery schedules for the Dreamliner, along with a heavier emphasis on shorter-haul domestic routes as the reason for the move. The same report showed 2 new Dreamliners order being added to the books from Air New Zealand. And now it's time for the AVW, the Aero Video of the Week.
Jump in the float truck.
This week, what's the best way to maneuver a de Havilland Beaver on floats around the airport to the water? Why, with a pickup truck and a trailer, of course. To find this video, go to YouTube and search for, quote, how to park a de Havilland Beaver. The full video runs about 4 minutes. And if you have a suggestion for a future Aero video of the week, send us a link to news-spy@aero-news.net. Finally this week, the modified Cirrus SW914 Turbo on an around-the-world flight successfully crossed over the world's tallest mountain, Mount Everest, on March 29th. The pilot flew by the Nepal side of the Mount Everest summit at the height of 29,344 feet, which means he flew even higher than the top of the mountain. But the news wasn't announced immediately. The Cirrus team had originally been denied permission to fly in Nepalese airspace, with the Nepali permit being canceled right before the flight. So the news was held for a day to prevent the pilot having trouble with the Nepal authorities. It was not announced until the Cirrus had landed safely in India, a case where it was probably better to ask forgiveness than permission, which sounds an awful lot like how we work here at Aero-News. Get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And join us again next week for another edition of Airborne here on Aero TV. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.